When you are flying FPV drones, your goggles are one of the most influential factors to how good your experience is. They are also one of the most expensive parts of your FPV setup, so it's important that you make a good decision. That's why I'm bringing you my Fatshark Scout review. Could these be your next set of FPV goggles? Or should you look for something else? Let's find out. Starting off the review, we've got their specifications. Included in the package are the goggles, an 18650 battery, which is actually right in here, an omnidirectional antenna on top here, an embedded patch antenna which is right about somewhere here, and that can't be removed, and a protective case for storage. It comes equipped with a 4-inch 1136 by 640 resolution screen in there, which is higher than what analog is capable of, boasting a field of view of 50 degrees. The weight is about 336 grams, so it's not too heavy. It features a diversity receiver with one external right-hand circular polarized antenna and an inbuilt 10 decibel patch antenna, which is also right-hand circular polarized. If you don't know what that means, it basically means that in the direction the goggles are pointed, that patch antenna is going to be picking up a lot more signal than this omnidirectional antenna. It has a fan inbuilt to stop fogging and an inbuilt DVR. The DVR on this model is actually very good, better than most other analog goggles. The ports included are USB-C, AV-in, 3.5mm headphone jack. It's got an SD card reader and an auxiliary slot. It will auto-select the video format between NTSC and PAL, depending on what your video transmitter is outputting. And this button right here is really cool. It allows you to change most of the settings in the goggles, and you can also press it and it's got moves in all these directions. Now that we've got the specs out of the way, let's take a look at the pros and cons of these goggles. First, we've got the pros. It's way more affordable than typical low-profile Fatsharks, while offering a similar high-quality experience. The whole viewing experience with it is very good. The screen is high-res, there is not too much light leakage, which is a main problem with box goggles, and one of my favourite things about it, there is very little eye strain. They have used a clever mirroring system to make the screen look far away, achieving a greater focal length than typical box goggles. The DVR is pretty much as good as it gets. It is the Immersion RC PowerPlay DVR, with a recording resolution of 720 by 576 for PAL, or 720 by 480 for NTSC, and a frame rate of 60 FPS. Another pro is the goggles user interface and design is very user-friendly. Everything you need to make it work is included in the package, compared to some more expensive goggles that require additional purchases. You can also watch DVRs in the goggles. You need to get an SD card for the DVR function to work though. It does feature a diversity receiver. This allows you to take full advantage of having one directional patch antenna and one omni antenna, giving better range than a non-diversity setup. Now onto the cons. Where do the Fatshark Scouts fall short? First, I will mention that when I got these goggles to start with, I did not like them. The screen mirroring technology initially created a lot of weird ghosting, which made the viewing experience awful, and also the padding pressed annoyingly onto my nose. But after using them for a few times, I got used to the mirroring, and I didn't even notice the ghosting, and the padding felt fine. So that's not really a problem anymore, it was just interesting to note to start with. Even though the receiver is diversity, I just don't think it's a good receiver. The range is acceptable, but it loses signal quickly when you fly behind a lot of obstacles. Speaking of losing signal, it does not handle low reception very well. I think it could be converting analog to digital or something like that, because when the signal gets very low, it can sometimes freeze for up to 5 seconds or so, meaning it's very hard to avoid crashing and get your drone back in range. Some people like to use different antenna combinations, maybe a helical instead of a patch, maybe even a LHCP antenna, which is left-hand circular polarized. Well, unfortunately, the Fatshark Scouts patch antenna is built in, meaning it's non-changeable. It's not a bad antenna though. It gives a lot of range in the direction it's pointed in. Another issue with the Fatshark Scouts is it seems like it may crop a little bit off the top and bottom of the image due to the screen mirrors being slightly different sizes. Also, if you wanted to play a simulator with it, this would be difficult as it does not have a HDMI input. So I have mentioned quite a few cons about the Fatshark Scouts. What would I have done differently if I was designing them? Well, I think most importantly, I would upgrade the receiver at the cost of a slightly worse DVR. As to me, I would rather have a really good range and an average DVR than average range and a really good DVR. If you struggle getting good range with these goggles, or any goggles really, then I think a huge tip is to make sure that your head is pointing straight ahead and facing your quad. Like the patch antenna, here is the drone, it should be facing right so that these antennas' signals can meet up. And that should improve the signal a lot, because a lot of people just stand with their head facing down like that, and that's not good for the signal. Okay, so now we've covered the specs, the pros and cons, so let's check out some comparisons and my recommendation. Generally, low-profile goggles are seen as being superior to box goggles. Like this is a box goggle. Low-profile Fatsharks with 2 screens tend to have higher resolutions, be a lot more premium than the average box goggle, and very importantly, not cause too much eye strain. They are also way more compact and have less light leakage, making the viewing experience more immersive. They have a receiver bay, normally, which means that you can change the receiver if you want to. There are some drawbacks to these low-profile Fatsharks though. For people with IPDs greater or less than what these low-profile goggles accommodate for, they will probably not have such a good viewing experience with these low-profile dual-screen goggles, as the screens will appear as 2 separate images, making a ghosting effect. These types of goggles are also generally much more expensive, coming without a receiver, battery, or antennae. These screens usually appear a lot smaller than box goggles screens, as they normally have smaller fields of views. But the Fatshark Scout is different to your typical cheap $50 box goggle. It addresses lots of the problems that most goggles have actually. It is premium, it has high resolution screens, it does not give you much eye strain, it's kind of compact, it does have a reasonable focal length, and it has a large field of view. It still does have some light leakage. It does not support modular receiver bays, and unfortunately it does not have an OLED screen, although its screen is still pretty good. Compared to high-end low-profile Fatshark goggles, I think that it's a really good deal when you consider the price difference. The reason for it being more expensive than most box goggles, I think, is because of their mirroring technology in the screens and the highly advanced DVR. The reason why it's a lot cheaper than most low-profile goggles is because of low-profile goggles' advanced optics. But really, the optics on the Fatshark Scouts are actually pretty good, and I think a lot of people are more drawn to low-profile goggles because of the smaller form factor, and also a lot of racers like a smaller FOV. Recently, a competitor to the Fatshark Scouts was released. It's the Skyzone Cobra X, a premium box goggle. Comparing the two, they are pretty similar, but each has a few advantages over the other. The Fatshark Scouts have a really nice build quality. Fatshark is known for a very good support system. The DVR on the Fatshark Scouts is pretty much the best analog DVR available. The Skyzone Cobra X is a very solid competition. It is often slightly cheaper than the Fatsharks. It has a higher resolution, an HD screen. You can change the receiver on it, for example to SharkBite Digital HD system, but it actually comes with a far superior receiver to the Scouts anyway. It also has an HDMI, so you can play a drone simulator with it. We've covered a lot of aspects about the Fatshark Scouts now, so do I recommend them? Well, if you are considering them, then I think for a similar price, the Skyzone Cobra X has some significant advantages, so you'll probably be better off getting them instead. However, if you can't or don't want to wait too long for the Skyzone Cobra X, or you want the advantages of the Fatshark Scouts, then I think that they are still a very good option. The Scouts will probably be good for you if you are wanting a decent, affordable, high-quality pair of goggles that are ready to go, and you don't want to spend a lot for expensive low-profile goggles. They would also be good for you if you wear glasses, or you don't fit low-profile goggles. You might want to avoid them if you need really good video reception, or you already have a lot of quads with left-hand circular polarized antennae. If you do know local FPV drone people, I would probably recommend for you to go to them and ask if you can try on their goggles in person, as FPV goggles are very subjective. So thanks for watching my review, and I hope you have some more insight into what these Fatshark Scouts are really like.